sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, here we go. We are live in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Chase joining us. We got a lot to really get into because we got some college games that are going to be really, really good. I am really looking forward to Georgia, Alabama. That is going to be a damn good SEC fight, and going to be having more NFL talks because there is a lot of things we have to unpack and really kind of understand a lot of these teams before we get started with week 4. But I'm telling you, Chase, I think I've seen at least enough as I possibly could after Jacksonville looks like a disaster. Jaden Daniels is more than we expected as a number 2 pick. And, for the rest of the NFL, I think we kind of have an understanding of what they are right now.
Yeah, no, the NFL is so crazy right now. I mean, it is week 3. Usually it's about week 8 or 9 is when we start seeing a lot of the big dogs separate themselves and we actually figure out who is on top and whatnot. Teams like the Steelers, I'm not buying into the hype of the Steelers. I'm really not. I think that they've had a cupcake schedule to start the season with. They've gotten very mediocre offense and put up, 2 touchdowns in the past 2 games, and their defense is what's holding them in there. They've gone against a Kirk Cousins coming off an injury, a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, and then a Chargers offense who had a hurt quarterback for a majority of the time and probably shouldn't have even played that game. And yet everybody wants to crown them as the kings of the AFC. No, I think that once they start playing a better defense, once they start playing a team with a more high-powered, explosive offense, they are going to get exposed, and we are going to see it. And, you got other teams out there like the Panthers making the move away from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, really sparked that offense and really showed you that maybe it is Bryce Young that is the problem and not, anything else. And then, going all the way through, we've seen what Clint Kubiak has been able to do with the Saints. The Chiefs are not looking, spectacular. They've had, mediocre play the past couple of weeks, but yet are still 3-0 because of their coaching. There is a lot to unfold in the NFL here. And, one statistic that I want to pull out is everybody's bashing on the Browns and looking at them about how bad that they are. Kevin Stefanski, after a loss, is 80% more likely to get a win after a loss than what he is, having back-to-back losses. He's only lost back-to-back games a total of 10 times in the 4 years that he has been our head coach. So I think that, we need to get our offense going. We got Nick Chubb coming back next week, which is huge. And I'm just excited to see how the next couple weeks are going to play out in the NFL.
Yeah, it really is. So let's start there with the AFC North, because I think what we're seeing right now with, again, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have always been a loyal, proud, strong franchise. But we've seen with how this offense has worked. And listen, kudos to Arthur Smith and kudos to Justin Fields, two of which Arthur Smith, the coordinator, is completely different than the Arthur Smith as a head coach. And I think we realized that. We recognized it from his days in Tennessee as the offensive coordinator, where he basically will work with the pieces that most people don't believe can really make a huge factor. And I think then you start to get into Justin Fields, and you saw exactly the Justin Fields in Chicago that it did not work well. And Caleb Williams, a rookie quarterback, right now, I mean, yes, he threw for over 300 yards, but the only issue is that you are seeing a much more comfortable, it may not be a flashy offense to Pittsburgh, but a comfortable Justin Fields because he's not feeling the weight of the franchise. And so I believe Justin Fields has come into a much better situation with a strong coach in Mike Tomlin who takes no crap from anybody, including the reporters. But at the same time, it is, in fact, a BB gun offense. Let's be honest about this, because Justin Fields, for as much as we have seen this, the RPOs has worked. He's working with every single weapon that is there. Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, George Pickens. And then even when you're having to deal with a somewhat of a run game from Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the kind that they are trying to get every ounce of an offense. No matter how, not so dynamic that it may be. But Arthur Smith is doing something that we've seen these spurts in Tennessee. Remember when Ryan Tannehill, things did not end up working out in Miami and he takes a one-year deal in Tennessee? Marcus Mariota gets hurt, in comes Tannehill, and then the rest of the story is history. Many people will say, well, you have Derrick Henry or you have A.J. Brown. But he's working with everything that was in front of him in the tenure with Mike Vrabel. And I feel like there's a bit of a similarity because Vrabel, defensive-minded, strong-minded coach. Mike Tomlin, defensive culture, strong-minded coach. I've seen this narrative several times, but the only thing that the strength of the Steelers team is defense. Now, understand that it is only 3 weeks, and like what Chase pointed out is you dealt with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. You dealt with a Kirk Cousins in a new place coming off that Achilles heel, and you dealt with, and by the way, you got into an entire bar fight with the Chargers and then left with Herbert was hurt. He was limping. You were dealing with a hurt quarterback. So the Steelers have gotten, at the very least, I'd say it was more of a free pass. But the defense is one of the top-tier best defenses we are seeing because TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, multiple players, but defense has always been in their culture. The offense, as I've seen today, if you look at from first down efficiencies and you look at exactly points per game and so on and so forth, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the bottom half of offense. This is why it has been shaky for me. They can live in the moment being 3-0. But I don't trust this team as far as longevity through the season because eventually you're going to have to take some of that weight off of TJ Watt and that entire pass rush because we've seen teams that are very defensive reliant. Yeah, those defenses never truthfully last as long as they should because offense eventually has to put points on the board. And that's why I'm like, you look at a lot of these teams right now in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs are well known for this. Great defense. Now, Patrick Mahomes could walk away with mistakes, but at least Kansas City puts points on the board and has a great defense. We know with right now, the Chargers are fresh. They also have a very good top-tier defense after what we've seen from Jesse Minter. He's obviously willing to tango with a lot of these top-tier cats. but they still are willing to put points on the board. They're willing to run the football. They just didn't end up running it efficiently against this Pittsburgh defense. But that's because the defense we know is top tier. But eventually, you're going to have to put points on the board if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. I could be happy for the moment, but eventually, and this is why the NFL is known for not for long. You could be happy being 3-0, but you may not be the 3-0 team for long. You could end up being the team that gets marginalized on offense, asking your defense to do twice, if not 3 times the load, and then eventually that offense starts to crumble. Mike Tomlin mentioned something that I thought was interesting, and this is so Mike Tomlin, is he's not rushing to the point of Justin Fields being the starter, which means there's going to be a chance that Russell Wilson will start. And how do you think that relationship will look? How do you think that offense would end up favoring out? I'm not saying I'm holding my breath on the Russell Wilson deal because the fact of the matter is he's coming off of an injury. We have not seen him take a whole lot of these reps with this offense. It's mostly been Justin Fields and everybody I've been hearing a lot of rumors and stories in the locker room that they love Justin Fields. So let's see how that relationship works. I don't see Justin Fields as dynamic, but the 3 things you can take away from Justin Fields in 3 weeks. Number 1, he's turning the ball over much lesser than he was in Chicago. He is also running out the pocket, getting the first downs, and is in control of the situation better than what he was in Chicago. And finally, he's not so erratic and he's not so frantic like what Chicago's quarterbacks have always been for the last few years. You could be happy for Justin Fields that he feels comfortable. You could be happy of the fact that Arthur Smith is coaching him out of the reckless. Look at Minnesota and Sam Darnold with Kevin O'Connell. He has coached the reckless out of Sam Darnold. How many times have we seen him be hurt in dysfunctional organizations like the Jets and Panthers? We could be happy for the moment for the Steelers as of right now. But offensively, they don't take my breath away. But we know that they lean on their defense. They're a strong culture. And anytime that you are at Pittsburgh, it's a madhouse. That's usually how it always is. Strong organization, strong fan base that knows how to travel well, by the way. And but I do believe that some of those teams right now, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Ravens, sure, they've got problems of their own. But I'm not throwing away the fact that Lamar Jackson wins 75% of his games. I'm not throwing away the fact, and this is where I'm kind of leaning a little bit with Cincinnati because I love Joe Burrow, but I do see this team putting up points. The thing that scares me is that they have to go into shootouts every week. That's my problem. But then with Cleveland, outside of the Deshaun Watson deal, is you've got at least a great pass rush. It's questionable, though, with Myles Garrett, but we'll see exactly with what reports are throughout the week. But I think the Browns can come out of this thing. It may not look pretty. It might look pretty ugly. But, I mean, against the Raiders, with how they've been feeling after Carolina, that's the part that I'm like, it was one of my stay away games, but I do feel like the Browns could pick up on it. We said before, this is the toughest organization or the toughest division in football because every single one of them are dealing with tough adversities. But at least the Steelers, they're a very sure-minded organization, but only for now. We can be happy with, but come the longer stretches of the season is when you really have to get serious. And sometimes after 5 weeks, watch these offenses really start to put points on the board. Okay, I was thinking about this. And there are 2 teams right now in the NFL I'm very sure about are probably, or they should draft a quarterback. 2 teams. Chase might either agree or he may disagree. But I feel like the Cleveland Browns, we are getting to a point that because of the Deshaun Watson contract, the Browns, I feel like, could be yet again looking for a quarterback. I know they have Jameis Winston. I know they have Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But if you look at how stagnant this offense has looked now in 3 weeks, I mean, it has been kind of a letdown, but we know that there's no Nick Chubb on the field. Hopefully he comes back this next week. But you could see the writing on the wall. I love Kevin Stefanski, and I love Andrew Berry, but the writing's there. Deshaun Watson clearly is a shell of himself. It's unfortunate for this. You got into business with this whole thing, which is why everyone is so critical of the Haslams for many of those reasons. Because I've said before in the past, they are the kind that is a desperate organization because they're desperate for things to work. That's not how you play this thing. And when Andrew Berry came in, they were nailing on draft picks. They were nailing on really good defensive players. They were doing the right things. But that's why sometimes, and I mean, I was very critical with the Cincinnati Bengals being a cheap organization because you've got Joe Burrow, but I think you've become very overzealous of the idea of you just have a franchise quarterback, we'll be fine. You've gotten too comfortable with that. And then the same thing when it came to, the Browns, when they know they needed to make a change. And that's why they shipped off so many of the quarterbacks. And hell, they shipped off Baker Mayfield, but he works in Tampa. And so that was kind of the hard pill. But as of right now, there's no hope lost for the Cleveland Browns. But the other team I'm also focusing on that I think we have an idea they should draft a quarterback, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. Let me be honest with you. I have followed this team for a very, very long time, since growing up as a kid. The length of quarterback play through a 20-year span has been undeniably atrocious. And the Raiders are a proud franchise, much like many of them. They've leaned on the 3 Super Bowls they've won. They've leaned on just win, baby. But every single time I watch this, I watch the fluidity of this offense. I watch the quarterback play now. I'll be honest with you on this. Derek Carr, I felt like when they had a window, when Khalil Mack, Bruce Irvin, multiple defensive players, and then, of course, Amari Cooper and Latavius Murray and Marshawn Lynch and multiple others. You had a window there. It's not your fault that Derek Carr suffered an apparent injury and in came Connor Cook in the playoffs. You did this again with Derek Carr, but you were one play away from moving to the next round of the playoffs. One play. The Raiders now have to deal with the fact that I love their defensive talent with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins and with Robert Spillane, Marcus Epps, and Nate Hobbs. They are very good defensively. And Antonio Pierce is a defensive players guy. Okay. He's a guy that, a lot of people, when going into the season, thought this could be similarly to a DeMeco Ryans effect because a lot of former players are starting to become head coaches. Not all of them always pan out, by the way, but as long as you have a strong mind and a strong culture and you understand like the idea of what it takes to really move an organization, that's the best part. I am watching Devontae Adams get pissed week after week after week, and he is not happy. I'm watching the run game not be as successful as I anticipated them to be because I like the fact that they've got Alexander Mattison, a second tier back who plays very good situationally, but this needs more work. And Gardner Minshew, by the way, here's the part I will tell you, is that Gardner Minshew with Shane Steichen with the Colts, was efficient. He definitely held his ground, but that was because you had an offensive coach who was willing to adapt in it. I'm not going to take with the struggles right now with Anthony Richardson on Shane Steichen's shoulders. We know that Anthony Richardson has been playing erratic. He's been making so many mistakes, and that's where the Colts had started to go backwards. But for the Raiders' sake, Gardner Minshew got completely undressed against the Carolina Panthers. And now, as news as I'm told, they are going to go with a quarterback change and go with Aiden O'Connell. If this does not work out with this quarterback as well, and I've seen spurts of Aiden O'Connell play. I think he's a good kid. And I think there was a part of it late in the season last year that they've had very good positive spurts. But if this doesn't work with Aiden O'Connell, expect Davante Adams to be on the trade deadline. Expect it. But if you do, take advantage of the value you have. I know Mark Davis wants this team to succeed. That's the reason they moved from Oakland to Las Vegas. I know he wants them to succeed, but he's not his dad. And honestly, you need a quarterback. I'm looking at a lot of these quarterbacks in this draft class. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. I think the two quarterbacks you may get lucky to draft would be Quinn Ewers, possibly Carson Beck. Because this is a defensive draft this upcoming year. I have an anticipation. Honestly, if you want to look at the best college player, college prospect in the country, somebody would be drafting Travis Hunter. I'm serious. That's arguably one of the best college athletes right now in the country, both wide receiver and corner. And then you're going to get into those spots like you were this past draft, where you may have wanted to take Michael Penix, but the Falcons swept it away from you. I'm not saying the Brock Bowers pick was terrible. I think Brock Bowers was one of the best tight ends in the country. You could not pass that up. He's definitely a generational talent in his position. So I think that the Raiders, this is why I had them going last in this division, but not on terrible terms, but it's because they're not quite there yet. They just appointed Antonio Pierce, so he has time. Now, Luke Getsy, we know, is a dual tight end type offensive coordinator. You could work with some of those things, but eventually you got to have the right playmaker. You got to have the right quarterback. I don't see this. I just don't see this working out if they drafted Shedeur Sanders. I think it's too much noise. And I've lived in Vegas long enough to tell you it's not the kind that you want to tamper around with. Okay? Sometimes it is very much temptation central when you're in Sin City. A lot of guys get into trouble with this. That's why I think Shedeur, I don't think I would even try to draft him. I just see this going south very quickly. I like Shedeur Sanders, and I live here in Colorado, but I just see this going southwards. I think Quinn Ewers, who has cleaned his act with Steve Sarkisian in Texas, feels like a very good fit, and he's got the rebel mentality. I mean, a Texas kid got a rebel mentality. Raiders are basically rebels of the NFL. If you're lucky enough, Carson Beck's another one. The guy that comes from a winning program of Kirby Smart in Georgia. So I think if you're smart enough, if you're the Raiders, let's see how this pans out. But do not be surprised if you see Davante Adams on the trade deadline. Take advantage of the value because he's only going to be worth a high value as long as he possibly could. Take advantage of it. But think about it. You have Jacoby Myers, you've got Trey Tucker, and you could go get another receiver if you wanted to. I think the Raiders could be in prime position for that. But Cleveland and the Raiders have that in common. But I think, honestly, the Raiders feel more like you need a quarterback. For the Browns, you just got to hope that there's no more dysfunction. No more dysfunction going into week 4. Chase, is it safe to say, am I wrong for saying that? I just feel like because I'm seeing quarterback play right now, the Raiders, if you draft a quarterback, I think you got to build the talent around it to prepare for that. And I think they're in prime position to do so. I like their defense. Okay, I have never said anything bad about this defense, but I do feel like that it is a team that you're dealing with Harbaugh, you're dealing with Andy Reid, and Sean Payton and Denver. I mean, their defense was great, but and then I'm looking at the Deshaun Watson deal. I mean, the fact that I'm like, the last thing you want to feel as any organization is trapped in a contract that is just like it's meaningless. So
yeah,
that's why I feel like you're better off to do that and get into a position now, because you got to also pay the important spots down the road.
Well, see, here's the important question that Andrew Berry has to ask himself. I know the owners stepped in and made the final decision on the Deshaun Watson trade, and I think that they're regretting it now. But the one thing we've got to look at is, one, how is the suspension going to is there a suspension coming for Deshaun? Because they've got a meeting this week with the lawyer of the woman that just filed the recent lawsuit that has video evidence of that. Yep. If there is a lawsuit if there is a suspension that is going to be cracked down, we could see the Browns get out from underneath that voided contract, or be able to void his contract and get out from underneath it, which would be huge. The other thing you got to look at is if we go into the Raiders and we lose to the Raiders, and then we play the Commanders next week with Nick Chubb coming back, and we lose to the Commanders. Well, now you go into the Eagles' house. We're 1-5, and we lose to the Eagles. And, all signs are pointing towards Deshaun Watson, and you've got to take a good, hard look at this team. Be like, this team is too talented and too good to not be successful. And you got to make sure that you go into this next draft with guys like Cam Ward out of Miami, who I am very high on. I love the way he plays. He reminds me of Lamar Jackson, but able to throw the ball better. A guy like Jackson Dart, who has been playing phenomenally over in Ole Miss. People are, saying he hasn't played good competition. Just wait until they play Georgia, see how he plays. And then finally, the guy out of Texas, like you said, Quinn Ewers, I think he's got everything that you need. Going back for his final season, his senior year, he has definitely shown signs of improvement. And then Steve Sarkisian running that pro-style offense and everything, running in the offense like what it would be in the NFL, and Quinn Ewers running it perfectly, goes to show you a lot. I am not really keen on Carson Beck. He failed to play well against Kentucky. He's, hasn't looked all right in the past few weeks, but I thought the Raiders were going to trade up for a quarterback this past draft. But you look at the roster that they have: Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, Mike Mayer, Brock Bowers. You've got the offensive pieces that they need. They are just missing a quarterback, and this is the draft to do it, where, like you said, this is going to be defensive and offensive line heavy draft, to where you are going to need to build the defensive side of the ball for a lot of pieces. And there's a lot of teams that are looking at O-line right now that are desperately going to need it. So those quarterbacks could be on the board longer than we expect. And I do agree, getting out from underneath that contract, or even just letting a quarterback sit for 1 year and then cutting Deshaun Watson after next year and eating the $70 million cap hit, it's going to be a lot better knowing that you've got a quarterback under a rookie contract.
And think about this, because reports that I was told during the draft, this past draft, the Raiders were actually they were hoping that they would either, it would fall on their plate, or they would trade up a few spots and they would go and draft Michael Penix. Now, unfortunately, Atlanta spoiled that for them.
I'm surprised they didn't.
Oh, yeah. Well, and again, and sometimes, we may not be in the war room, but there may have been a little bit more of that conversation that has gone on than most people do not realize or know about. But I do think, though, that the Raiders, they should be thinking about this very clearly, because, again, Derek Carr gone. I mean, you're having to now find your next franchise quarterback. It's not as simple as most people think it is. like I'll get into this mode, right after the break, but sometimes just life feels simple when you have a franchise quarterback, because then it makes everything else simplified. I mean, if you have the GM, right, but you got to get the coach and the quarterback, it feels like there's more strain in your hands than you think. But if you got the coach, the GM, you just got to get the quarterback, then there's going to be time for that. I'm looking at right now with the Giants with Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll, because Dable's a great coach. I'm just questionable about Joe Shane, but, Daniel Jones is now starting to play into that effort. But I think the reason of this is because I think Malik Neighbors is just that guy. You're not
I think so too.
Like you've never, when have you last seen Daniel Jones really have quarterback ratings in back-to-back weeks where he's at 100, past 100? And I think a lot of that is because when you have a star there, it makes all the difference in the world. But if you've got the quarterback, but you've got to get the coach in a Justin Herbert type deal, because that's why Jim Harbaugh jumped on this immediately. Because I got Justin Herbert. I could work with this. Because now a franchise quarterback who's done this now for a few years makes all the simple things. Now you just got to build the trust, and you got to build the culture and the right pieces around him. So I think the Raiders have found the culture guy. They just now have to find the right quarterback. And I think that will make all the difference in the world, to where now this team may not be as far away as we possibly think they are.
Exactly. And I totally agree that, they are wanting to win. And I think that the Raiders GM does realize, I have to go out and get a quarterback this next year, and we cannot prolong it anymore, because this team is starting to get to the point where if they get competent quarterback play, they will be a force to be reckoned with in the AFC West, and they can actually compete and try to take down the Chiefs and compete with the Chargers and being that team that everybody fears and doesn't want to play. And I think that, you are looking for something good coming out of that. Real quick, I do have to cut out from the podcast real quick. I will hop back in. My boss is calling for me, so.
All right. Well, good luck, man.
Thanks.
I just am like, I just think with the situation right now, it seems like it's the kind of thing that I would do if I'm the Raiders. Good stuff. We're going to get a little bit more into this. Now, we know it's Wednesday. I will have my prime predictions tomorrow. So thank God I've got an extra day for this. But I needed to kick back in college football, because right now there's been a bunch of stories I've loved. So I'm going to have my go for three once again. And the three really good games that I think are very, very fun, and they're going to be very fun to watch. And so I'm excited for what this will look like here this weekend in college. All right. So you guys have heard me talk about America's favorite sports book for over 30 years. That's right. BetUS.com. BetUS has been the best sports book in the country, in America, providing you with the best sport line and the best sports book for you to get in on the action during the NFL and college football season. It is undeniably one of the best. That's why they're a great sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show, because they provide us with all the intel of everything I need to know of up-and-coming games. But BetUS gives you many guarantees and many favorable stuff, like a guarantee of $50 or more in your deposit, 3 deposits, matching it up to 125% bonuses, gets you up to $2,000. So the more you deposit, the more chances you got to increase the pot, no matter what your bets are, whether you got single parlay leg bets or more. That's where BetUS comes into the clutch. Choose BetUS today. Sign up. Link in the description. Gambling problem, call the number in your respective state, 1-800-GAMBLER, and seek therapy and seek help, because we do not want you to gamble recklessly while using BetUS. BetUS, where the game begins.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Key Williams and Dante Criswell star in 7200 Seconds podcast Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Back here with all of you guys on the Snake Sports Talk Show with Chase and myself. Good to have you all in. I was thinking about this. So after what I saw from the Monday Night Football game, I'm looking at every single one of these rookie quarterbacks, and there is not one of them, as of right now, outside of Jaden Daniels, who has given me so much of the wow. Caleb Williams is going through a lot of this stuff in Chicago right now that we know that Justin Fields has gone through. Okay, that's respected. And Bo Nix has yet to throw a touchdown pass in already 3 weeks since he's entered the league. And then there's Penix and JJ McCarthy that we aren't probably going to get a chance to see just yet. And maybe you hold your breath if you're Atlanta, depending on how this offense works. But the stuff I'm seeing with Jaden Daniels, I think is just magnificent. I said this going into the draft for the Washington Commanders. Everything is brand new. The coach, the GM, the owner, everything is brand new. And now the quarterback is also brand new, Jaden Daniels. The guy is remarkable, and I think the guy also gives you a Lamar Jackson-esque type of offense, but with a better pocket presence. Jaden Daniels, what he's been able to do with this against the Cincinnati Bengals, I thought was tremendous. The fact that he came into a situation, didn't feel panicked. He basically took control of the game situationally. It's unfortunate that the Cincinnati Bengals are built the way that they are to go out and play in shootouts. It's hard enough that, this is what's literally happening to the Bengals. Same old, cheap ownership, can't seem to extend and keep the right guys around for Joe Burrow, which is why right now with Jamar Chase, if you think about it, with a star wide receiver, Joe Burrow is working with Jermaine Burton. He's working with so many of his offensive weapons. So they've got the quarterback right, but you got to get an offensive line to protect him. You got to get at least a defense outside of Trey Hendrickson for your pass rush that really can help out this team a little bit more. And I think right now they're kind of trending in a situation I don't even want to be in. But I watched Jaden Daniels in multiple of those games, and I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like with what Jaden Daniels puts on the table. I think he is the most surefire pick. The last year, think about it. Bryce Young was the number 1 overall pick. And why was that? You came from a strong program in Alabama, win a national title, and then at the same time, you go and get drafted high. CJ Stroud, by the way, an Ohio State product that not a ton of Ohio State quarterbacks have panned out over the last few years until CJ Stroud arrived. Because you got to think of the late Dwayne Haskins, JT Barrett, Troy Smith, and Terrell Pryor. There's been so many of these quarterbacks out of Ohio State that just haven't been able to pan out in the NFL level. But that also doesn't account for these Alabama quarterbacks either. But when you looked at different situations, Bryce Young went into an awful situation with Carolina. And you look at CJ Stroud in Houston with a better coach, a better culture, and you've also got better players around you. Now you've got a stacked roster all the way around. I know the Texans didn't quite perform as most people were hoping, but this is what happens when you are a team that has put together the most amount of talent over the offseason. You are now targeted as a team to really test to see how tough you are. This is the NFL. It happens all the time. Nobody gets freebies. Everybody usually, when you're division winners or you go into the playoffs, chances are the next year your schedule gets tougher. That's just the reality of the game. But you saw the trend with number 1 and number 2 overall pick quarterbacks. Look at where it's panned out. Bryce Young is now benched for Andy Dalton. And right now with what you're seeing with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, Jaden is in a strong culture build where everything is brand new. Rest assured, Washington fans, you've got a bright future ahead of you with this. And here's what's also that they're lucky for, because the offensive line is so bad, but they're lucky for it because Jaden Daniels, he's a spot and go type quarterback. He gets the ball, spots wherever he finds his weapons everywhere around on the field, and then will make a decision to run the football, and then he slides, he does everything right. I see him as a competitor. You know, they said this going into that draft, that Cliff Kingsbury and a lot of people were like, we got to go get him. This is a guy that can compete. This is a guy that can win. Many people thought that, you know, the Commanders would have taken Caleb Williams because of Cliff Kingsbury's history. But that was not the case. It was the opposite. They go get Jaden Daniels, and this is the same team that went out to try to offer the same match that the Baltimore Ravens were going to give Lamar Jackson for his extension, but they came up short. Baltimore got the extension. Lamar was staying put, but Washington finally gets their gifted quarterback that I think can succeed in this league. For how long, you ask? I don't know. But as I'm seeing as it right now, many people thought it would be Caleb Williams to win it. I think it's leaning more Jaden Daniels and more than anything else. I know it doesn't, it honestly is not a talked about thing, but you're watching Joe Alt as a rookie and the way that he's been playing in his first 3 weeks in the season before he went down with that MCL sprain. Kid's really good. We're 3 weeks into this puppy, and I'm already seeing Jaden Daniels do unbelievable things. I think he is everything that the Commanders were hoping for. And with Cliff Kingsbury, who's worked around Kyler Murray and multiple others, this has a chance, and it has a shot with a Dan Quinn gritty culture that this can succeed. I had no doubt, and I did not rest, saying that the Commanders were going to be the surprise in the NFC East to trump over the Dallas Cowboys. I said that very firm and clear. They want something new. They want a stronger culture. Now I believe they have the quarterback. And like I said, things are so simplified when you have all those things. It just makes life simpler for you. But I think Jaden Daniels has a brighter future ahead of him, and I cannot wait for the next few years ahead. Chase now with the news.
This is the hot press.
Jaden Daniels is just surprising me in every single way possible. That's why I think he has a brighter future ahead of him in his career. There's no question in my mind. But I think it just goes to show. I think Caleb Williams not quite prepared. But he has to overcome the fact that that's an organization that doesn't build offense well. Whereas for Bo Nix and Sean Payton's deal, Payton still, he's been saying he's liking with what Bo Nix is doing. He doesn't have a passing touchdown at this moment because, again, that Broncos schedule is horrid, where you're 13 straight weeks before you have to get that bye week, and you know how difficult that may be. So I think Jaden Daniels, is in the perfect situation right now. And for a rookie to come in and do what he does, I think it's outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, you could also look towards the trade deadline. If Devontae Adams becomes available, don't be shocked if the Broncos jump on that. Don't be shocked if the Patriots. Don't be shocked if the Commanders. All of these guys jump on it. And the reason why we also haven't seen Drake May yet is because they don't want to throw him out there with that offensive line, because they know that having him out there with that O-line, as bad as it is, you are going to look for trouble. So they want to make sure that they're doing this right. They put him in this past game versus the Jets because you had 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you were not coming back to win. And they're like, okay, get him a little bit of experience. But Jaden Daniels, when you have Cliff Kingsbury coaching guys like Patrick Mahomes in college, Caleb Williams in college, Kyler Murray in the pros, all guys that are dual threat runners and passers, and he knows how to coach these guys well. And I think that is what we are seeing success with Jaden Daniels. And I've been saying this time and time again. I agree with you. I think the Commanders are going to finish second in that division ahead of the Cowboys. Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs. And I think that if the Bears want any chance at Caleb Williams succeeding, they need to go out and get Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick this offseason, an offensive-minded guy that is going to get him on the right track and going to get Caleb playing at the level of Jaden Daniels right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is going to be a heck of a. I just think it's going to be a heck of a year for some of these guys, because I do think that, like with Caleb Williams, something has got to give. It has to give, but that's the whole sake of Chicago. You know, they're not quite there when it comes to building a type of offense. They're not known for that, but I'll tell you, man, I think it's quite clear with how this is running. So I think Washington is in a prime spot to be doing the most amazing stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I'll get into the news now. So we can sit here and say that the NFL has gotten soft over the past decade of how the play has, catered more towards the offensive side of the ball and helped protect the quarterbacks a lot more. And yes, the ratings and views are going up with the NFL each and every year. But, then again, we are starting to get into the flag football sense, because a lot of the defensive players, they're taking away their ability to get hits, taking away the ability to get tackles, and causing a whole lot of penalties. We saw Derwin James is getting suspended for this game because of the hit that he had on a player. And I just think that it is absolutely ridiculous that we have resorted to this.
Oh, by the way, have you watched that video? I mean, you watched that highlight, and I'm sitting there going, and, again, I had my choice of words for the NFL. I probably may speak about that more tomorrow, because that's just going into the week. But I just felt like this is something that the NFL, it felt a lot like what the NCAA did with Michigan and toward Jim Harbaugh. If you knew there was multiple violations of these kinds of plays, why did it take now to initiate this in a Week 4 matchup against Kansas City? Because if you think about it, that hit did not fit the crime. That's, I think, the part that I think is really aggravating for Charger fans. And look, I don't blame them. I just think right now, Jim's got to be looking at this and going, boy, do I just love being back in a situation like this. I just think that is the kind of thing you just do not want to end up getting into a match with. If you are, if you're the NFL and you saw what happened in college football, you do not want to have any part of that at all. I really, really don't think that.
Now, another thing that we've got to focus on, and I mentioned this earlier, but we're going to go ahead and reiterate it, that I see Jameis Winston starting by Week 7 for the Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
Only because we have to sit here and look at the big picture. We have evidence now that had come out about this new lawsuit, and with the lawyer meeting with the NFL this week or possibly next week to discuss this, and with evidence of this woman being physically assaulted along with sexually assaulted, with messages and pictures and a whole bunch of other things, we could see a potential suspension for Deshaun Watson, which means that they will void the contract with him as soon as they can if that suspension hits, because under the clause that they put in there is, if the organization did not know about this, pending lawsuit, or had any other further ones come out that he did not disclose with the team, per suspension from the NFL, they can void the remaining years of his contract. And I think that what they're going to do is they are going to void that contract immediately. They are going to cut him, and they are going to start Jameis Winston. And the reason why we have not seen Winston start yet is because of the golden contract that they ended up signing him to. And I think that week 7, once we get some clarity on the suspension, or we're going to see another major injury from Deshaun, we're going to have Jameis Winston starting by week 7. Count it right now.
Wow. I mean, that is I just think, with Cleveland, they need something that's honestly going to move this organization. Because I love Kevin Stefanski too much to see this really kind of take its toll. And it's it's an unfortunate thing, but you do gotta move with something here. And so I really, really think that with this, the team, it's just kind of hard in my opinion with just the way that Cleveland's looked now. I mean, Jerome Ford's doing everything that he possibly can without Nick Chubb, and the offense, it's just not looked the same since Deshaun's gotten there. And I think a lot of that, I felt initially that it was more so of the distractions. Well, now it's become worse than that, because now it's distraction mixed with even more stuff that's now starting to come out of the surface. And I think that's one of the things that's hard about it. So I think at this point, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you got to do everything in your sake to really kind of save up this offense. And I think if you got to go with it, now it's not going to be an easy process because of the contract, but I think you have to initially go with a change. I think you have to. Oh, we lost Chase there for a second. See if he comes on back. All right.
This is the Hot Press.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
We got disconnected.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just really kind of feel bad for this kind of situation.
I do too. And then you are looking at teams like the 49ers with CMC going to Germany, getting his Achilles looked at because, the Achilles tendonitis is so bad that they think that he could possibly rupture his Achilles if he plays anytime soon. Brock Purdy is now out with an injury, or at least questionable with a back injury. And you are starting to see year in, year out, the AFC Championship and Super Bowl hangovers on teams. Because people don't think that it happens in the AFC Championship round. You see it with the Ravens and how, they're playing. And you see it with the 49ers and how they're playing. And then the Lions, are not playing to the level of offense that they had last year and everything. And I think that, when it comes to this next draft, you are going to see a lot of offensive pieces off the board in the first round because people are going to be fighting for those top offensive linemen, those top wide receivers, those top, playmakers, somebody that's going to make a difference on the offensive side of the ball, leaving the defensive players to that would be in the first round to go in the second.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's it's great points from there. It is a real thing because again, you are seeing a lot of these teams, but again, this is kind of what we highly anticipated. There would always be a change of playoff teams every single year. Because there are some teams, like if you're Kansas City or you're Buffalo or you're San Francisco, you get into the playoffs. But there's other teams out there like, Baltimore. I mean, the way that things are starting, but then again, I still believe Lamar Jackson, because of 75% winning percentage, is one of those things that I'm like, it's hard to bail away from. But I could see, Tampa Bay. They were in the playoffs, but I could just see that changing a bit. I could see multiple teams, even in the AFC, that have made it in, that I could see that changing. I mean, there are dark horse teams up out there. And like I said, I would not have been surprised if I felt like the Cardinals, to an extent, fight for that last wild card spot in the NFC. I would not be surprised. I think because we're seeing this right now with how hard that they've been playing, and they're now playing with a different play design, and it's working for Kyler Murray, and it's also working for Marvin Harrison Jr. So the Cardinals could easily interest us in some of these ways. I mean, you're looking at the Rams decimated with injuries. Now, granted, they came away with a big-time win against San Francisco, but even with that, they're like on their last limb with all these injuries. So I know that there's such a thing as early injuries and then there's late injuries. The late injuries that kill you in the long run. But I think in the end, you're going to have those teams that are going to want to go on a run. So it just depends. I mean, we're getting into week 4. And like I said, our prime predictions have been tasty thus far in 3 weeks. I mean, the dogs have been barking for 3 weeks straight. I've been watching the bet lines, and boy, has it been a great start for these underdog picks. I mean, these ones have been looking really, really good. That's why I think having those picks, because I think it usually happens all the time. You're going to have underdog picks that are going to go on a roll, but then there's a couple of those favorite matchups that I'm going to take the favorite. I'm going to take the favorite in that game and then just watch and see with how this works. Because I can tell you right now, tomorrow night's game between the Cowboys and the Giants, I don't know what to make of it. I've said that is a stay away Inferno 5 game because I don't have that in my Inferno 5. I've got that as one is like that is a game. If Dallas does not come away with this against the Giants, who they've had their number several times, that's going to be pretty bad. I'll know that by the first quadrant of that game. That I'm like, yep, this is kind of what we would have predicted the outcome. Marginalized by running back. So it's a Dak reliant offense, and they cannot end up coming up with some of these clutch plays. Now after that loss to the Ravens, Lamar Jackson 21-1 against the NFC. So that's the part that I think if you're the Cowboys, you could have taken advantage of.
Yeah, I mean it's very, very tough and difficult because the Ravens O-line is that bad to where you had to have gotten more pressure on Lamar. You should have gotten more pressure on stopping Derrick Henry. And I think that pass rush for the Giants, that defensive line, sacking Deshaun Watson 7 times this past week because of a revolving door of O-linemen. We had to move our left guard out to left tackle because we had so many injuries on the O-line this week. And our all-pro guard, Wyatt Teller, the right side, is now on IR for 4 games because of how decimated we are. But the fact is that if they cannot get, pressure against Guyton on the Cowboys, then I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to pull out this win. Now, if they can get pressure on Dak Prescott, they might have a chance of winning this game, and you are going to see a completely different Giants team turn it around after we all thought Daniel Jones was doomed from the start and going to be sitting here saying, do they really need a quarterback or do they just need more offensive weapons for Daniel Jones?
That's right, yeah. And you know what? I mean, because the thing that interests me with Daniel Jones is, I mean, this is the 6th year that we're having to deal with this. And now I don't I'm not saying I've got full faith in Daniel Jones. I just think because of the way Malik Neighbors' play has been, I mean, the guy is The guy's unbelievable. And I knew that coming out of the draft, out of LSU, the kid was going to be very impactful. But I also did say there was going to be some hard times with Daniel Jones and with that offense because you still got to move the needle on the thread. You have to. And the other thing is, I mean, they have Devin Singletary as the running back. That's why I also do think that, because if you look at it, look at the running backs that the Cowboys had to deal with. Alvin Kamara. And now the thing that I think gave them a break was the fact that they were not playing Nick Chubb. So that gave them a bit of a break. And then you've got, Devin Singletary this week. And then the previous 2 weeks you had Alvin Kamara and you had Derrick Henry. So now you're kind of somewhat coming back to, but I also don't dismiss what Devin Singletary's done in the past. He's a very good back, but he's no Saquon. I can tell you that right now. That's the thing that in tomorrow's game is if I'm watching, if Devin Singletary has 15 carries, almost close to 100 yards, or even close to breaking that barrier, that Cowboys run defense is atrocious. And I think that is the opportunity they would need to take advantage of. So, yeah, I think it's a trap game on both sides. I do think CeeDee Lamb did come out and he did apologize for his actions in that last game against the Ravens. It was you saw it on the sideline, him and Dak are barking at each other, and usually that does happen all the time. But sometimes it's a bad rap. Even when you look at Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, it's a bad rap when you see that on national television. It's not something you would want to see with an offense, but sometimes there are frustrations that get in your head. But the other thing is, the takeaway from what I was told, go look at the injury report. And I think that's why I think Dallas may have an edge. Because that injury report, when it came out, the secondaries are banged up. And that's why I think it could be a break that the Cowboys could be getting. But if they lose that, even regardless of that, yeah, I'm throwing it away.
I agree.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I really was hoping to get into at least some college football bets today, but I think I'll save that tomorrow. I think I might save that just early before the prime predictions. I still have a bit of time at that because all these picks I've got they're tasty this week. So I got to do a lot more of this stuff. And people that could check out our prime predictions right now, I believe Chase right now is in the lead for this. So I'd have to go back and do all the rest of the the standings and such, but I believe he's up and in the lead. Good showing for 3 weeks. So, but hopefully,
I can't believe we're in week 4 already.
I know. That's why I'm like, I got to get a streak going. These next 3 weeks, I got to get serious with this, and that's initially what Prime Predictions always does. All right, well, that's gonna do it here for myself and with Chase here on the show. If you guys haven't done so already, like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button. We are trying to meet our goals on here, live on Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social media platforms known to man. Don't miss out on the show. Thanks for hanging out with us here tonight. Sponsored by BetUS. $50 or more to your deposit with 125% bonuses of up to $2,000 in your first 3 deposits. So that means the more you cash in, the more chances you'll win big bucks. So check out BetUS for yourself during NFL and college football season. Prime predictions tomorrow. I'm excited about it. BetUS, where the game begins. Link in the description. Also by SeatGeek. I trust SeatGeek with everything. With all of my events and sporting events and concerts and so much more. SeatGeek ensures that you will find the best seat at the house at the most affordable price. I'll be back in Coors Field Friday and Saturday because I have got to watch this last series. It's between the Rockies and Dodgers. I'll get more into that, too, tomorrow's show. But, yep, I trust SeatGeek with everything. Download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. $20 off when you use promo code SNAKESPORTS to get yourself the best deal in the house. Chase and myself, we are out of here, and we will see you guys tomorrow on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Have a great night, guys. See you all tomorrow.
See you later.